Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Powerhouse Podcast. I am your host, Candy Barone, and it is absolutely my honor, and I am so enthusiastic as I have one of my most favorite people in the ring with me today. Before we jump in and get started, let me just say a warm welcome and hello to Lynn Burdick. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Candy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And I cannot wait to jump in because Lynn has an absolutely fabulous story to share and some amazing work that she's doing. And so just truly honored to have her here to go a few rounds with me. So before we get started, for those of you that have joined us and some of you that might be joining for the first time, this is our space to talk about leadership on every level, leadership and what it looks like in today's environment. And as we've talked about many times, leadership is truly a function of how you choose to show up, how you choose to serve others, and how you choose to take personal responsibility inside that space. And our conversations get rich and meaty and deep, and we don't do a lot of surface stuff on this show. We want to get into something that is powerful and meaningful, and hopefully you will be able to take some nuggets away that you can connect to level up your life as well. And so with that, let me introduce the amazing and just fabulous Lynn Burdick to you. On October 24th, 2018, Lynn wrote in her journal, "I did not save my life to act like a dead person." Ooh, that gives me chills just thinking about that. And Lynn's question for all of you is, how many of you are going through the motions of life and truly living like a dead person? Imagine a life instead where you could feel vibrant, passionate, present, and alive. Her name is Lynn Burdick, and she has a story that brought her to a place that is truly about being able to plant the seeds that allow you to bloom into her full glory. And that being said, I don't want to spoil kind of the story. Lynn, talk about this idea of blooming, planting the seeds where you're at, blooming into your potential, and how you had, truly a wake-up call on October 24th last year. That really was this defining moment for you. So talk about how you arrived there.
Well, for 2 years, I had been trying to build my coaching practice. And in January of 2018, I decided that just doing it by myself bullshit wasn't working anymore. And I attended your 3-day. And that is when I joined the mastermind, because I have tried to build many different businesses and just had hit my head up against the wall and wasn't making any progress. And so I needed to take some action to make this happen and get some help. So 3 months into the mastermind, I found a lump, and it was malignant. And fortunately, I was going to be okay. All my doctors said I was going to be okay. And as I went into treatment, I kind of had this attitude that, this is gonna work. I'm gonna be all right. And I'm just gonna do it, and it's gonna be gone. And I'm not gonna think about it anymore. But the reality of the situation is that even though my diagnosis was positive for the diagnosis that I got, that it really changed my world, even though I tried to pretend that it didn't, So a diagnosis like cancer, it kind of leaves you feeling like you have no control over your life. And no matter what the doctors say, all of my options had consequences. There is no risk-free option. There is no like, okay, we're going to take this out and you're going to be fine and you never have to worry about it. Everything came with risk. So as I was doing all of this, I just couldn't deal with building a business anymore. I needed some stability. I needed some normality back in my life. So I decided that I was going to take the easy route and go look for a job, which cracks me up. And around this time, I started posting a lot of things that I was making. I've always been a maker, a crafter, a designer, making things. So I just went through this big flurry of making things, and I just was posting them randomly on Facebook. And then I got a little comment from you that said, you should be selling your stuff. And my response was like, yeah, no. Do you know how much time this takes? And you can buy a bunch of socks at Walmart for $6. No, I can't make a living at this. And you, being the great coach you are, would not let it drop. And you pulled me aside and said, no, Lynn, you really should be selling your stuff. And I was like, no, Candy.
Yeah, we go round and round a lot.
No, Candy. You don't understand how long it takes to make a pair of socks and blah, blah, blah. But have you seen my bags?
Right.
And then so we got on this whole discussion, and I like to decorate with flowers. I love flowers. Flowers just make me happy. I think they're beautiful. They make me smile. And so I decorated them with flowers, and bloom has always been a word that resonated with me because not only for the flowers, but because it's a metaphor for growing into your potential. So as we went through all this, we left that conversation. You're like, so how do you feel? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so excited about this. I'm going to do this, And I had a plan, and I was going, and we left that conversation. And I was a mad woman. I was brainstorming, mind mapping, making vision boards, doing all this stuff. And by the next morning, I literally had this whole manifesto for how I wanted to be this business beyond what we had even talked about, right? I was going to combine my love of designing and making things with my love of coaching and wanted to help people grow. And I had this whole vision for everything, proceeds were going to go for scholarships and all this stuff. And I was so excited and I was so pumped. And a week later, I was back looking for a job.
Yeah. And so I want to stop there for just a minute, because I want to get into some of the continual journey, and I want to talk about how this philosophy has really become something pretty powerful over the course of the last year. But before we do that, I want to get into some of what you talked about a little bit in terms of where some of that fear came from and some of where you had the resistance. Because as we'll get into some of this more, you'll see that Lynn is wildly talented in a space that, she really, even shifting a mindset from being a crafter to a designer, which was one of those opportunities. But before we do that, talk about the resonance of the reality, because I think this is something that sometimes people gloss over. You got an announcement, you got news that changed the course of your life. And it's so easy sometimes for us to brush past that or rush through that to say, yep, I got it. I'm good. I'm going to live. It's fine. And I don't want to gloss over the fact that there was a journey for you in the healing space of the actual diagnosis, the allowing yourself to really get into the space of what that diagnosis meant for you, and some of your own ability to be able to stand in that space to talk about that. Because one of your kind of spaces originally was, I don't talk about it. It doesn't exist. It goes away. And I think that that's really easy for people that are used to just moving and moving and moving, and they're on to the next thing. And I don't want to lose sight of the fact that a big part of your journey has been owning your story, has been really allowing it to set in and allowing yourself to be open to share that. So let's talk about that piece first, and then let's talk about some of the next levels, because I don't want people to miss the fact that there's a big space there. And for people that have any kind of transition or defining moment like that, to know how to connect through that and kind of get to the other side where you can stand and be more comfortable sharing that with people. Because you've had a journey in that space, and I don't want to just gloss over that.
Well, yeah, in the beginning, I was it was like, you're not going to use the C word. I was telling people how they were, when I was announcing to my family, it's like, this is what you're going to do. This is how we're going to play this game. And, by all outward appearances, it didn't look like anything had really changed in my life. It was just, and I was truly like, nope, not gonna, this didn't happen. It's out, it's gone, bye, not dealing with it. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, how'd that work for you?
It didn't. It didn't. And looking back, there was this, it really stemmed from a lot of the fears that I had been facing in trying to build businesses before, because it was this, I had to be impenetrable, I had to be, I was a warrior. Nothing's gonna, that I'm not vulnerable to anything. No, I can't get sick. I can't do any of this stuff. And I even approached it, like as I was going through it. And looking back, there were times when I was like, crap, I really would like somebody to just call me and tell me that, say, hey, I'm just checking up on you. But I had given this persona that I was fine. Everything was fine. I don't need any extra help, or I don't need anything. And I looking back, I really would have liked that. Yeah. And I think that it part of that was what had built up to October 24th kind of thing. This whole, and it was really deep down, it stemmed from a lack of belief in myself.
And so let's talk about that, because there is this juxtaposition, right? That we have this, as humans, we have this huge desire for someone to really, really see us and understand us. And then on the other side of the equation, we have this incredible fear of stepping into that vulnerability to really be seen. And I think what you went through over the last year was a real experience in both sides of that space, right? That I wish somebody would just call and check on me, and, oh, I don't need anybody. And so that was the energy putting off. So talk about how that started to shift when you allowed yourself to be more vulnerable. And even with that word that you're not a fan of, surrender, what has that looked like to help? Because that was part of the journey that got you to October 24th. And that's been a lot of what's been further opening that then we're gonna really move into how that helped shape what is now the Bloom philosophy, which I think is so powerful. But it started with you having that space to allow yourself to lean in a little bit. And so talk about how that started to transition for you.
Well, it was it was painful, to be honest. I mean, it was not an easy transition. It wasn't like, oh, it was hitting my head up against the wall continually, because I was like, okay, at that point where I was like, I'm going to go back and look for a job. Well, that wasn't going well either. I mean, I was hitting my head up against the wall on that too, because any of the positions that I wanted, and I really felt qualified for, I didn't look good on paper for those positions. I haven't been intentional with my career as maybe I could have been. And so on paper, it looks like I was all over the place. And so I knew I had all this potential, and I knew I had the ability to do all these good things, and I was being blocked left and right. And what I realized, that the biggest block was coming from me inside. It was, I was the biggest block in this whole journey, because I kept looking for other people to validate myself and prove my worth. And it was like, whoa, that just leaves me at the whims of everybody else. And let's face it, we're all rather selfish in the fact that we just tend to think about ourselves. So when we're like looking at somebody and think, oh my God, what are they thinking about us? They're doing the same to us. So,
right.
So I was really the biggest block in my own journey and my own growth. And I realized it really started with looking at myself and trying to reconnect with myself, because I spent so many years twisting myself up as a pretzel, trying to be something that I thought I should be, that, you know, that my ex-husband wanted me to be, or that my, you know, that the experts say you should do, and all this sort of stuff, that I just lost sight of who I totally was. And I think that's what happened on October 24th, is that just all came to a head. Because I truly believe that, you know, those who know me, I am an incredibly disciplined, and especially when it comes to my health. I mean, I've been a runner for over 10 years. I've been doing yoga for over 6. I've been, you know, I eat healthy. You know, all this sort of stuff. So when I found that lump, it was like, what the F? And I was like, I've done all the things I'm supposed to do to take care of myself. But I really believe that lump was a physical manifestation of everything I had buried within me, and not honoring my true self, not being my authentic self. It was kind of like, okay, if you're not going to pay attention to me, the universe was like, we're going to do this. We're going to slap you in the face, or, you know, so that you can't not hear us anymore.
Yeah. And I think about a quote from Tony Robbins, right, where he says, life doesn't happen to you, life happens for you. And I think there's an incredible power and responsibility when you start to say, I believe that this happened as a manifestation of how I wasn't honoring myself, as a wake-up call. Because coming to that day, coming to that defining moment for you, where you wrote in your journal, God didn't save my life, or I didn't save my life in order to walk around and live like a dead person. That day, October 24th, talk about that shift for you. Because there was a reclaiming your personal power. There was a space of, oh my gosh, I need to connect to me, that has now transcended into like 180 degrees opposite of where you were. There's you before October 24th, yes, and there's you after October 24th. And so talk about what that was like to step into a space to reclaim both your personal power and take responsibility for how you were showing up.
Well, the point leading up to all of that was just basically it was like spiraling out of control. Like I said, I was, even though I had this business idea and I loved it and was in love with it, maybe because I loved it so much and it meant so much to me, that I pulled back. And then a week later, we met in the mastermind, and I remember sitting there and thinking, like, I was really like in a hole. I was like, you know, the other people were talking about all these good things that were happening to them. And I was like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? What's going on with my life? And, you know, before we had ended out, you had asked me if I had anything else, you know, any questions or anything. I was probably more quiet in that session than usual. And I remember just saying, you know, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what value I bring. And of course that started a whole discussion, and, you know, and the one thing that you said to me that really resonated and really stuck with me was, you know, what about the things that you make? What about your bags? And we had gotten onto that, and you know, so something had slowly shifted there, you know, like somebody, and unfortunately I still needed kind of like that outer validation, but you had validated that my making things and that part of me was important and valuable. So, and then of course you guys all loved on me, and I was like, okay, I'm in, I'm doing this, I'm doing it. I'm gonna do it. And you know, I rode that wave for a while until I had one of those days. It was October 24th, and the shit just hit the fan. You know, we were fostering a cat, and he was sick. So I had to take him to the vet, and Lord only knows how many that's. My car was in the shop. The check engine light was going, all this sort of stuff. Nothing was working in my mind. And I just I was like, I had it. I can't do anything. I was like, I'm sitting in my pajamas. I'm a weeping mess. I reached out to you and you were like, journal. So journaling has always been very powerful for me. So I started journaling, and literally I used every swear word in the book. I was like, "Dear monkey mind" is literally how I started out. And I just, what do you want from me? And I wrote and I wrote, and F-bombs were all over the place. I think I invented new swear words. And I was going on and on, and I just went on, and I just finally, it was till I exhausted myself. And I was like, okay, but look at this. What are the pros and cons? Okay, moving into, doing this business or staying where I'm at, going and looking for a job, which I know because my history is awful, or my job history is all over the place. I knew I would have to, start somewhere low and work my way up. I knew I would be bored because I've always undervalued myself. And so I always pick the low-hanging fruit, and I'm going to be sitting there watching a clock. It's like, is this what I've signed up for? I know what that's like, and it sucks. Or do I take this new adventure? I try to start this business. Maybe I fail miserably. Who knows? But in the process, at least it's a journey. It's an adventure. I'd be learning something new. Who knows where it might take me? If I'm living in a box under a bridge, it'd be a hell of a good story of how I got there, I'm sure. So finally, that's when the words came out of me. And that's when I just wrote, I did not save my life to act like a dead person. And I just looked down at those. And, before I was like this, weepy, crying mess, like, what do you want from me, universe? Why are you doing this to me? And I just looked down at that, and I was like, I pulled my shoulders back, and I was like, no, I did not save my life to act like a dead person. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And from that on, it was like the dam broke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really. Because it's amazing what you did from October 24th, even to the end of last year. The impact and the amount, even from a monetary standpoint, but even just in putting your voice out. And I remember having some of those conversations where you're like, I've done more in the last 2 months than I've done in the last 2 years. And because people ask all the time, well, how long does it take? When you have the epiphany, when you stand in the space to truly claim who you are, it happens overnight. I tell people the same thing when I transition. When I had the conversation with a mentor of mine, and I said, oh my God, yes isn't a project I'm supposed to build while I'm climbing the corporate ladder. Yes is who I am. And I started bawling, and he goes, Candy Barone, my friend, you have a decided heart. And it was from chapter 6 in the book, Traveler's Gift, from Andy Andrews. And it's one of those moments when you have a decided heart, when everything starts to, the universe brings everything you need, and it starts to conspire in this beautiful way. And it, like I said, there was Lynn Burdick pre-October 24th, and then there was this whole other, and those of us that have been with you, and you're in year 2 of the mastermind, that have been with you in this space are like, holy shit, what happened? Because you've woken up. And I think that's the opportunity. And the thing I love is the fact, and first of all, for those of you that struggle with journaling, I get so many people that resist that. I love, right? Dear monkey mind. And just have a full on conversation and be like, what is it? What do you want to tell me? And make up words, please. I love that you made up swear words. I'm always making up ways to express myself. But it's only when you vet that out. And I think there's something so powerful in what you just said, that it's only when you're willing to get to the point of exhausting yourself, when you've cleared out every possible bullshit way you are getting in your own way, when you clear out all of monkey mind, when you've sat there and you've said, I want to hear everything you got to say to me, go. And it's only when you're in that last breath, that last moment, that last space of desperation and exhaustion, that all of a sudden the truth comes out. And it's the same thing in the work we do, right? It's that I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep saying why. What is that doing for you? How's that working? Where are you going? And it's after, the 20th damn you candy barone, which is one of Lynn's favorite expressions. It's that space of, ooh, that you got to be willing to go that extra step. That for those of you that feel stuck right now that are listening, I want you to understand and listen to what Lynn just said. It's when you're willing to put that last bit of effort, that last tapping out and exhausting yourself, whatever's still left in that tank. It's that very last bit of the residual that's going to get you the answer for what you need. And it was the pushing and the just emptying. And it was more of the emptying than the pushing. It was the just releasing and allowing it to just seep out of every pore possible, whether it was crying or screaming or writing or anything, that it was the last bit of whatever needed to come out that was the epiphany, right? And I think there's something so beautiful, because I want to talk about how that moment has brought you into this philosophy about not only are you planting the seeds that you need for your life to bloom into your potential, but you've created a mission and work now that has significantly raised you to another level in the Bloom philosophy. So talk a little bit about what Bloom philosophy really means, because that's been the outcome of this journey that you've been on. And it's incredible to witness.
Well, bloom is one of my favorite words. I mean, even back when we had those first discussions, we were talking about my bags, and I was like, bloom. Oh yeah, that's my favorite word. And so I love playing around with words and acronyms and everything. And I was like, well, what does Bloom stand for? So the Bloom stands for believe in yourself, live and lead from love, own your power, overcome, and maximize potential. And each of those, I can even go further into depth in all of those. But really, what it all comes down to is that that you have a belief in yourself, you embrace your unique qualities, you set your boundaries, you love yourself, you invest in yourself, you work on eliminating self-limiting beliefs. I mean, just because I had this big, the dam broke on October 24th doesn't mean I haven't hit other walls, right? I mean, it's like, the thing is, let me just tell you something, because the dam broke, the water's moving a lot faster now, so I'm hitting those walls a lot quicker than I used to,
Right.
I was sitting there at that dam waiting for it to break for like 30 years, and now all of a sudden it's like, ooh, that water's flowing, and I'm going.
Yeah.
But it really starts with finding your authentic voice, because what I realized was I'm a maker, I'm a creator, I'm a designer, and this is integral to who I am. It's coded in my DNA, and I knew it, but because of a comment that somebody had made to me, like, oh, that's fine as a hobby, but you can't make a living doing it, I kind of relegated it to, okay, it's a hobby, and tried to do other things that didn't feed my soul or do anything for me. And I realized that when things finally started rolling, that I wasn't paying attention to who I was. And it really starts with, okay, like when that dam broke, it was like, this is who I am. And really owning it and stepping into it and being like, yeah, and this is, and I wouldn't have been giving this gift if it wasn't of value, right, if I couldn't do something with it and that sort of thing. So, what I realized was it really starts with believing in yourself. And unfortunately, women, especially women of my age, I'm 56. So I was kind of brought up with, on the cusp of that whole women's lib thing, I mean, it was normal for me and my peers to go to college and that sort of thing. It wasn't normal for my mother's generation, so there was still I still grew up with a lot of the norms of, My father never asked me what I wanted to do for a living. I mean, nobody in my family really ever asked me what I do for a living. It was just expected that I was going to get married and support my, be there and support my husband and raise kids and that sort of stuff. So, and so we were kind of forging our way. And as we went into careers, it was, we were told to dress like men, we had to look like men. We can't show our emotions, oh my God, I can't even, just to think about the clothes that we wore then. The suits and that sort of stuff and how we dressed and the little scarf ties and stuff. Oh, but, so we were conditioned, my generation was conditioned to serve other people. We were not, as Sheryl Sandberg says in her book, Leaning In, women were not brought up to be advocates for themselves. Right. We were brought up to fit in, not belong, as Brene Brown says in her Netflix special. The difference between fitting in is you're trying to change yourself to accommodate other people, whereas belonging, you start by belonging to yourself, right? And so, so I realized that, there a lot of women my age have been dealing with this. I think it's better for the millennials, but I know that for my generation, and this is the stuff that we've been taught. So I really had to step back and who am I? Yeah. And who do I want to be? And it was really like peeling off a lot of layers. All these things that I thought I was, I realized I wasn't. And so the philosophy is really, really stems with that, like reconnecting to your authentic self and who you are. And then just realizing that we're all coming from different places and different perspectives and different journeys, and to lead from love, and that growth comes from challenge, and it's a fact of life. Be prepared for it. You've overcome other challenges. You can overcome whatever challenges are put in front of you, and own your power. That's another thing for women. I don't think we're taught to own our power, and there's so many different ways that we can, so many different types of power I am learning as I explore this. And just to, as you continue to grow, you're really just maximizing your potential. So I really just embrace this whole, like, oh, this just all, if you can just grasp these things, that it's just I think we can lift everybody up. And what a better world this place would be if we're all like operating from our authentic selves, and we're all out there trying to serve others with our gifts and talents. And, I that's especially with what's going on in the world today, that's where I want to focus on. Let's be a light in this world.
Yeah. And I love that. And I love the philosophy and the way, and it's magical. And I know we're kind of getting close on some time here. So I want to make sure that people have an opportunity to go see the amazing work and the designs that you're creating. But Lynn has created these Bloom bags, these bags that really embody on every level the philosophy of Bloom, her mission to really help women feel empowered and connect back into their authentic self. And each bag is unique. They have these incredible, beautiful sayings in the inside. They're vegan, which makes them, environmentally sustainable. It's a wonderful thing. And the one thing I want you to share about that, aside from the fact that the bags, I have just about every kind of bag she's put out. I am a raving fan, of course. And the bags are one piece of it, but talk about what you do with a purchase for each bag and the additional scholarship program that you've created, because you really are about using all of the materials and being able to really bring that into a space that not only is you being able to carry out that message, but it's opening up opportunity for so many in two different capacities.
Yeah. So the one word that really describes my business is nurture. And that's nurturing creativity, because that's such an important, I have not nurtured my own creativity. So, and I think creativity is that's such a human thing. I mean, we're all creative beings, whether we want to believe it or not. I mean, and it goes far beyond the traditional definition of the fine arts and music and dance and painting and that sort of stuff. But creativity is like our birthright, and it really adds a lot of, you know, joy and juice to life, you know, makes life juicy. So to nurture creativity, nurture the environment. I feel very strongly about having sustainable and eco-friendly practices put in place. I mean, the fashion industry is very wasteful and I think it's the #2 contributor to pollution in the world. And so I want to be very intentional about not only, you know, the materials that I use, but the waste that I produce. And my goal is to eventually be a zero waste facility. So I save, you know, as many of the scraps and everything that I can, and to nurture my employees when I have them in the future and help them. I want to help them grow into their potential through mentoring, coaching, scholarships, that sort of thing. Nurture the community, because business does not exist in a bubble. So to be a part of that community, and then also to nurture my customers by reminding them of their power and glory, which is why I like to put the quotes in the bag, so that when they look in there, they're reminded. But what I do with my scrap, first of all, 10% of all my proceeds is being set aside for scholarships for women. I am currently in talks with a couple of nonprofits to partner up with them for that money to go to scholarships. Because education, mentoring, coaching, that's a huge way to maximize potential, right? And then one day I was sitting around playing around with the scraps that I had generated from it, and I just started making quilt blocks, and I was like, oh, this would make a really cool quilt. I should make myself a quilt out of this. And then I thought, wait a minute, what if I take these scraps and make a quilt and then auction it off? And my Scraps for Scholarships program was born. So not only am I using my scraps to create this quilt that's going to be auctioned off at the end of the year, but also I'm looking for, if people are looking for ways of getting rid of their scraps of fabric, you know, and don't want to dump them in the landfill or do that sort of thing, you know, I also am open to accepting scraps. But I think I think we need to, you know, we can't just give lip service to lifting people up and helping them grow into their potential. There needs to be some action behind that, and that's where the scholarship.
And I love that, and I love your commitment to that. Nurture your creativity, nurture your community, nurture, you know, others, the environment, because you do walk that in everything that you do. And I think that not only, you know, watching your business flourish and grow and bloom into its next level, but watching how diligent and mindful you are about being a steward back into our culture and our environment, into the work that you do is part of why I wanted to have you on the show today, because I think it's really powerful for people to see that even in the early stages of what you're building, we still can step up and lead through that in a really powerful and responsible way. And so just truly love that I've been able to watch this journey from the ground up, right, through the process. And I know there's people right now, and by the way, it's 11:11 on the clock right now. How awesome.
It is.
I would love for you, I know there's people that want to know how they can, one, get your bags or be part of the whole Bloom philosophy, two, maybe participate in the scholarships for or the Scraps for Scholarships or other ways to help you move this forward. So if people want to connect with you, Lynn, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Well, there are two ways. Probably the easiest way is to reach out to me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. It's Lynn Burdick Designs. And I do a Facebook Live every Monday through Friday at 9:30 talking about the Bloom philosophy, which it's really just kind of a video diary of this is what I did and how I messed up, and this is how you can do better. And so they can reach out there if they want to get a hold of me, like the page. Also at my website at lynnburdick.com, you will see examples of my bags, blogs that blog posts that talk more about the Bloom philosophy and just about what's been going on in my journey. I'm trying to be very transparent about what's been happening, because too many people show all the pretty side. They show the sun. And it's like, no, this is the reality of it. And
right.
so.
Yeah. So yes, because there is an underbelly to what we do, and being an entrepreneur definitely has its pitfalls and other things. And so I truly appreciate that. We will have all that information in the show notes below. So as we are closing out this amazing conversation, is there any last thought or piece of advice or a nugget that you'd like to leave this audience with today?
I think what I just want everybody to know out there is that they are enough. They are absolutely right where they're supposed to be. They don't need to be fixed. I spent a lot of my life thinking I needed to be, there was something in me broken and I needed to be fixed. We don't need to be fixed. What I've learned is what we need to be is more of who we really are. Mm-hmm. And when we tap into that, then you will see life change.
Yeah. And I love that. And I love that because that absolutely plays into everything that we talk about every week. Because first and foremost, before any of this magic happens, before you find your true passion, purpose, mission, calling, it starts with you saying yes to yourself. And it might start with you writing Dear Monkey Mind and having the journaling and going through. But one of the things I want you to realize is don't wait for the defining moment to level you. Take action now. We only have so much time, and time is one of those beautiful things we never get back. And so start by saying yes to yourself. Destroy the noise that's getting in the way. And Lynn is such a beautiful example of really working through that process so that you can stand in your own authenticity and be the leader that you were destined to be. And that is leading with your gifts, leading with what you were given as a unique, beautiful, authentic voice print and soul to share into the world. And so with that, Lynn, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It has been such an honor being part of your journey and having you share your story. Thank you so much. And then, okay.
Oh, thank you, Candy, for having me. I appreciate it. And I I love you. So
I love you too. I love Post always. And for all of you listening, thank you as always for tuning in, for joining us in these big conversations. And as I said, leadership has many colors, many levels across the spectrum. And I want to bring you people that have been out there doing work for years and years and years. And I want to bring you people that are learning how to step into their own power as recently as October 24th, 2018. And so thank you for joining us as always. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so so you do not miss any of the episodes. We've got a lot of amazing thought leaders to be in the ring having these conversations. Until then, go out, shine your light, be passionate, be purposeful, and be powerful in who you are. And know that leadership is always your choice. I will talk to you soon. This is Candy. We'll catch up with you next time.